Hi everyone, my name is Charlie and today I have a review of Extracting Humanity and Other Stories by Stephen Oram. I was sent this book to review by Isabelle Kenyon of Kenyon Author Services, but all of the opinions are my own. Extracting Humanity and Other Stories is a short story collection that is filled with speculative fiction. These are stories that are discussing how artificial intelligence might come to interplay within human interaction and life, how it might affect class systems and the world as a whole. One of the things that I think that the author does very well within these stories, and is something that I think works best within speculative fiction, is brings it down to how this global phenomenon affects an individual and brings it down to the family and a singular human or a singular character. And through that one character manages to then explain what is going on globally, which helps as the reader to empathise with the situation and also causes a lot of thought. So yes, this is a thought-provoking short story collection in terms of all of the different aspects of technological advancement that it's discussing, how technology might come to not just hinder our lives, but how it could improve our lives. So there is this blend almost of the dystopia and the utopia, because you can see within these stories how the technology could be used for good and might have been intended to be used for good, but it might have had the opposite effect. Another aspect of these short stories that I liked is that they were short. I say that because I think some of these stories could have had novels written about the subject matter, but I don't think that they would have been anywhere near as impactful as they are within this collection. I think that because the author keeps the stories short, it allows the reader to suspend their disbelief long enough that really the stories become a engagement between the reader and the writer, and this discussion almost. And that's where I say this thought-provoking aspect of the book comes in, because you have the human story, and then as well as reading that, I was there thinking, how would I react if this became the everyday and it became the norm? Some of these stories are incredibly short, and I mean the really short ones can have a huge impact, because it's almost like, well, what happens now? Where do we go from here? But I think that the author here is relying on you to not create an ending, but just to sit with those themes and ideas for a while and work out how you feel. It almost feels like a call to consideration. The author here is asking the reader to address their own thoughts and opinions on a topic. Admittedly, I'm a bit of a technophobe, so some of these things ended up being almost like horror stories to me, because the idea of certain aspects within this just terrified me, because I have no conception, other than what Star Trek has taught me, to any of the things that the author is talking about. And I think with a big discussion around artificial intelligence at the moment, and indeed more of the way that it is like this diabolical upcoming villain within the story of our universe, the tales behind it have been tales of woe and misery more than anything good. And I think that the afterword in this short story collection really goes a long way to help the reader find out more about the author and how he came to write the book, but also gives you an idea of what is going on in the real world. One of my favourite parts of this collection was the way in which it dealt with these futures and these technologies, but they were grounded in reality and they were grounded within humanity, and there were still some very human tales to where the reader could feel sympathetic for the characters and what was going on with them, and also had classic short story moments where you know that there's something going on beneath the surface, and then when there's a revelation about it or the turn in the tale happens, it can be emotionally impactful at times. I was impressed by the skill of the writer and the way that they managed to convey their world within such short spaces of time. And there were a lot of different ways in which things could go. and I liked the exploration of that. For me, this was a short story collection that could become a conversation piece and allows the reader to have discussions with themselves, but also might open up discussions with other people about technology and its advancement in future, as well as having some very human stories at its core that leave quite the emotional impacts that I'm still thinking about days later. And I very much appreciate that in a short story collection, especially when, as I say, some of these short stories do actually put the short in that title, and that has just caused them to linger a bit more than I thought they might. So if you are interested in speculative fiction or science fiction, or are just wondering about the ways in which the world might go, maybe you're even looking for something short to try and just test the waters when it comes to this genre, then I would heartily recommend Extracting Humanity and Other Stories by Stephen Oram. Once again, thank you to Isabelle Kenyon for sending me this collection. I at first didn't know how I was going to get on with it, but I'm exceptionally pleased to say that I was fond of the experience of reading this one. And that's the book. If you have read this book and would like to discuss it, then please feel free to do so in the comments. Alternatively, do you think you will go on to explore this book? Side note, if you've got any ideas of other books that might be in a similar genre, feel free to let me know about them as well. I hope that you have enjoyed this video, because until next time, that is all.